Daily Bread. Today we're with Mr. Hratch, the Rug Wizard. Welcome, Hratch.
Thank you.
Good to have you
Thank
with us. We're going to discuss what your background is. I want you to tell the audience what your history is in the rug industry, the rug culture, the Armenian culture. Give us your wealth of knowledge to the audience and enlighten us, please.
Well, let me tell you about me first. I was born in Aleppo, Syria in 1951. I'm 70-some at this stage. Short after my birth, my family moved to Lebanon. Lived there until Civil War. And late 1970s, I migrated to United States because of the Civil War. My family, from my father's side, he's been a weaver all his life. His father was a weaver. That's as far as I know. Since we've settled in the United States, first my 3 years was in Chicago, Illinois. I couldn't take the cold there, so I had to run. Go west, young man.
Come to Los Angeles.
Have been since 1979. I have been a Los Angeles resident, and since the year 1991, actually, my father lived right here on Marcus, next door to your beautiful venue here. And in the year 2000, I purchased a property down the street in Shadow Hills, where I built my workshop and my home, and I've been living there since. Until then, I had a beautiful showroom in the Design District in West Hollywood on Melrose Avenue. But in the year 2000, we decided that it was too much traveling, and sometimes the work takes your life, and I didn't want that because I had an interest in doing research on carpet weaving history. My major being an anthropologist, I was always interested in the patterns of Oriental rugs. And then I've noticed that there is a distinct difference between, in general, Caucasian rugs or Armenian rugs versus their neighboring other cultures. And for example, Indian rugs, Persian rugs, they all are ornamental. What I mean by that is they are floral patterns. You see the nature in those carpets. You see flowers, trees, birds, little animals. But in Armenian rugs, they are all geometric, very distinct difference. It always was interested me. I was thinking, why is this difference in such a close area where cultures get affected from each other, but why Armenian carpets stayed until today geometric patterns, which are abstract forms. So to be able to do that study, I needed more time. So I closed the store, the showroom. I also had another workshop where we provided restoration, cleaning, and all that, and moved to Shadow Hills. And I only cater my select clientele. I do works for many big companies designing rugs. That's my major thing. I design custom design rugs. And I got also involved with Armenian Rugs Society for the past 7 years. I'm the CEO, I'm the director of the Armenian Rugs Society. And here we are.
Beautiful. And you were awarded from the LA Times.
Yes, Los Angeles awarded me Best of Los Angeles in 2005. That was in 2005. Yeah, about what, 18 years ago. Actually, LA Times did the whole front page article on me and my stories and the work I do. So all that in the back now, I'm focused much more in history, Armenian American history especially, because from the middle of the end of 19th century, in this country, all the hand-woven rugs, so-called Oriental rugs, were introduced to this country by Armenian merchants, Armenian tradesmen. And the reason it happened at that time, because in 1880s, during Victorian era, there were big masses of Armenians migrating to the United States. Among them were those carpet dealers that opened the stores and so forth. But, we went on this subject so fast, Arnie. Before I do that, let me take this opportunity to congratulate your new studio, congratulate your space here, your world. You're creating a beautiful place here. I want to congratulate you, and I want to commend you for the work you're doing for your community. I'm being one of you in your community also. I want to commend that.
I appreciate it. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you, Hratch. Thank you.
It means a lot to us, and I'm sure many people in our community feel the same.
Thank you, sir.
So that's who I am.
Beautiful. No, you're a wealth of knowledge. You've experienced the culture from the rug, I guess, carpet point of view, carpet industry, carpentry, or the weaver's history that you have from, you were raised in it. And actually, we'll slow it down, how we ended up building a closer bond and a relationship was when you were auctioning off the rug for Artsakh. And I want to thank you and show my appreciation and gratitude for the work you've done for the Armenian people, for the work you're doing for the Armenian people, keeping the Armenian culture alive, and donating so many rugs and so much money and funds to the Armenians. In a way, it was the orphanages. Now it's the displaced Armenians from Artsakh.
Well, what I'm doing actually, it's nothing new. I'm continuing the tradition, the American tradition, actually. Me as an Armenian and American citizen, I've learned a lot from American people. We're going to talk about this in length. A lot of people have heard about the term when they refer to Armenians, maybe the older generations heard it more. They used to call us starving Armenians. Well, what happened, I'm going to start showing you a few photos. Let me go to this first photo. If you look at this poster, it shows Lady Liberty raising the sword and protecting a little girl. She's protecting a little girl from destitute, from getting killed, okay? And it says, they shall not perish. And there was a campaign back in 1915, right during the First World War, when the whole world was involved in that First World War. American people stood up and helped the survivors of the Armenian genocide. When I say Armenian genocide, people think of 1915. Well, it started actually way before that. It started in 1880s, during the Hamidian Sultan Hamid, and what we call in 1880, between 1884 to 1886, there were over 300 Armenians massacred in Adana, in the province of Adana. And starting from then on, American missionaries, American government did extend its hand and help the Armenian people, Armenian refugees. So during that time, in 1915, they decided to found an organization, and they called it Near East Relief. And they ran a campaign to raise funds to assist the Armenian Greeks and other Christian minorities, including the Assyrians. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, this part of the history is not only Armenian history, it's also American history. Okay?
That's true, definitely.
Now, it coincided that we are in September now, in December now. December month, every year in December month, I get into this charity mode. It's not only for Armenian people. You know, I also belong in a motorcycle club, yes, the Armenian Brigade. We start actually charity work from Thanksgiving Day. We pass around turkeys for poor families. When Christmas comes, we do a toy run. We collect toys and spread it to the kids that are less fortunate, let's say. We do another toy run to the Mission District. We help the homeless and all that. So what American people did in 1920s, it's embedded in our genes. And it was a lesson to the future generations to continue the goodwill that they have done. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just returning what has happened, what was done for us. So, going back to the history, I'm going to show a few images to draw a picture what happened then. Of course, we're not going to go into much details. If we go to the next photo, this is the present day Turkey in that green area where it says Turkey. But there are two circles in red that showed where the historic Armenia used to be before Turks arrived there in 14th century. You have on the west Cilicia, on the southwest Cilicia, on the Mediterranean coast. And then you have the historic Armenia, which was over 140,000 square kilometers. And the tiny red one is what we know today's Armenia. So in all these historic Armenian places, during the First World War, there was the massacre. Actually, Turks, they seized the opportunity while the world was in war. It was a chance for them to just get rid and put a final end to the Armenians in that territory. The next image is also a map where it shows where the heavy Armenian concentrations were, where it says Turkish Armenia, and further northeast, where Karabakh is what we knew as Artsakh and what the lesser Armenia was. Those were the areas that was involved in war, and there were over 4 million people back then. from which almost 2 million were massacred. The next photo is also a map. This map was done by Nearest Relief, the organization, showing where the heaviest massacres were occurring. All these red dots show where the most killings were done. Okay, and on the side you see some archival photos from that time. They're really sad photos. Now, going to the next, again, a poster produced by Nearest Relief, showing specifically where the victims are. And on the left, it shows how many square miles of territory were covered where those massacres were happened. And it also shows the countries in 1914, how many millions were, and how many died of massacres, and so on. And it shows the big number, 3,950,000 people were starving. After this, the next photo is the original copy of the telegram United States government received from that time the ambassador of United States, Henry Morgenthau, in Turkey. Henry Morgenthau has witnessed many of those atrocities, and he pulled this telegram asking the American government that they must do something to save these Armenians. If you go to the next one, again, this is a small excerpt from Henry Morgenthau's filing that he received. Going forward, that's Henry Morgenthau himself, which was the key player in helping the Armenian people at that time. Armenians, Greeks, and Assyrians too, by the way. After United States was notified and they started assisting the Armenians, they were carrying all the refugees to refugee camps. And this map here shows now Turkey, historic Turkey, is huge. So the organizer of those rescuers, they focused on immediate rescue. So it shows mainly 3 areas Armenian people were evacuated to. The one further east, they went to Armenia and towards the southern Caucasus. The ones on the far south, they went to Syria, eventually to Lebanon. Well, at that time, Lebanon was part of Syria. And the ones on the west, they went to Iraq, Iran, and all those places. So all in all, it shows all the specific numbers, how many children, how many people were rescued. Mind you, I should mention that the majority of the people were young children, women, and elderly. Most of the men were already massacred. Now, the next photo is also a map printed by the Nearest Relief. It marks all these areas throughout Near East, Middle East, including Armenia, where they had to open orphanages. There were over 180 orphanages for those parentless
Survivors.
kids. So this is the map that shows all those X's where you cannot even count them. Going to the next, United States did a survey at that time, and in their census, they found out that from over, I don't know how many million Armenians, existing Armenians, from that part alone, only 3 million left in worldwide, not only in that area, worldwide. This was confidential, and it was released in 1950s, this document. All these documents are copies of the original released by the State Department, by the way. Now, in this photo, dated about 1910, there were already orphanages, Arnie. That means, I'm going to show you further down other archival photos that predates 1915, okay? This is a school in Adana Missionary, school for students, about 1910, where students are learning how to do embroideries. Now that, we're going to talk about that further down. What happened when they learned this. This was a tradition, by the way. Every Armenian school, when I was young, we had a vocational training. We used to do carpentry, we used to do models, building models, boys. And the girls used to do embroideries. This was a vocational training, extracurricular activity in every Armenian school. So this is a photo from that time. The next one is a beautiful carpet woven in Aintab. This, and right down below it says Aintab Orphanage. In English, not in Armenian. This and many other carpets were woven with inscriptions by orphans to be donated as a gesture of gratitude to major donors, to the American people. So when they received all these funds and they were really happy, they wanted to express their gratitude. So they did what they knew best. They wove those carpets, they put those inscriptions, and they sent it to the donors as a gift. Here's another one. This one is probably the oldest. This is dated 1889. And this rug with beautiful gold center, it's a directional rug. The arch on the top represents the gate to the heaven, or it represents the altar in the Armenian church. In other words, it's a prayer rug. So with this rug, the weavers are sending their prayers and their gratitude to the donor. And on the top, it reads, The Orphans of Agin, 1898, in English. And on the right, the same thing, it says, Vorpen Agnats, 1998 also. And in the center, right above the golden mihrab, where that point is, it has an excerpt from the Bible. Could you read that, what it says?
It's Matthew 7:12. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets.
It says a lot.
Definitely.
Hence, that's exactly what American people did in 1915 on with when they opened their pockets, opened their arms to the refugees, opened their pockets to assist them. At that time, President Coolidge did a call to American people, and he said, every Sunday, please just eat a very small meal, what the Armenian orphans eat, and the rest of your money, please donate it to assist them for their livelihood. And hence that became the golden rule.
Golden rule.
Now, every December, the golden rule hits me, and when December passes, actually I live by it entire 12 months. Hence, why do we do all these charities, Arnie? When we pass on, when our time is expired and we are gone, there is a saying in Armenian with everybody that passes on. In English, we say, rest in peace. But in traditional Armenians, they say, may you rest peacefully in eternal light while your memories are alive with your loved ones. What that means is, we also say in Armenian, Mahamerne menk mahina martu korzne misht anma. Translating that, we belong to death, and death belongs to us. Nobody escapes that. Okay? What is immortal is the work we do. We will be alive as long as people remember us of what we have done in our lifetime. Hence, the month December, hence the charity works, hence the community gathering. I mean, everybody, if they do exactly what this proverb says, do upon others what you like others to do unto you. Now, if these works, if these carpets were not woven, and people who received those benefited from those donations, if they didn't return and express their gratitude, no one would have learned.
Nobody would know. No.
And it never would pass to the next generations. So here comes my study of carpets also. Carpets are like books. In those patterns, from one generation to another, when they copy, it advances. And those symbolic meanings, the symbolic designs, the geometric designs are saying something. And they originally started from people who were illiterate. Probably they even started way before the creation of the alphabet. So when those inscriptions were not on this carpet, if somebody saw the pattern of this rug, the gold arch pointing to the sky or pointing like an emptiness in the back, it says something.
And every rug has a story.
Every rug has a story, exactly.
How many rugs were woven by the orphanages?
Well,
approximately.
We don't know because they were not recorded. But the only place that was recorded, we'll come to it later, that we know of specifically, over the period of 20 some years, 3,224 carpets were woven only in Ghazir orphanage, today's Lebanon. At that time, Lebanon was part of Syria. Therefore, in archives, it says Ghazir, Syria. And unfortunately, not too many survived. We don't know what happened to them. There are only handful of them, and they all are in the museums. Hardly any in private collections. I was looking for one for many, many years. For over 40 years, I was searching for one. I finally found one, the one right behind me. And we know how it's, why is it woven in Ghazir orphanage? Because of the weave. We look at the weave. Every rug has its fingerprint. That's how we can tell the origin of any rug. If you send me any photo about 4 square inches of the one corner from the back, I'll tell you the era, what time it was woven, and where it was woven, anywhere in the world. Now this one, I was lucky to find it, not only the rug, also the hand-sewn,
Wow.
the
Artist
hand-sewn
relief.
original ticket in the back, and it does say Near East Relief, rug number 774, and the numbers and the weavers, how many knots, and all the technicalities were handwritten. Everything is still original. Now, the only other place I saw this, the same tag, was a 12 by 18 carpet that was woven by the same girls to be donated to then President Calvin Coolidge in 1925. You'll see the photo later down the line. We'll talk about it. And by the way, while talking about this pattern in the center, you see a cross, then an X shape. This iconography here, the same thing, you would see it on the crown of our one of the most ancient kings, King Dikran's. And it's a symbol used in many Armenian logos, iconographies, many things. That's what it represents, the sun, by the way. And as you know, sun plays a big part in Armenian culture. We swear by our parents' son, our children's son. We wish Morusarev, right? Arev Shadutun Gemachtem. We wish you plenty of sunshine. The sun is
part of us.
Part of us. As a matter of fact, every single the hierarchy in Armenian language, for example, it starts with AR. For example, we start Ararich, creator, Arev, son, Arka, king, Arudz, king of the jungle, Arziv, king of the sky, and Arvest. Arvest is the art. Arvest Taked is artist. Arhest is trade. Arhest Savor. And the list goes on. So everything is tied with Arev. Anyway, going forward with the rugs. The next one was also another rug dated 1907, March 9. This was a gift. This rug was a gift to Gulbenkian. Gulbenkian played a big part also. There were some rich Armenians in diaspora that opened their pockets also. I mean, not only Americans. There were Europeans also that fetched in entire world actually. Even Japan assisted Armenians at that time. Here's a photo of orphan girls. This is dated 1919, after the massacres, because there was a short time when French did a mandate, and when Armenians were deported, they weren't thinking that they were going forever. They left their home. They were lied upon. They said, it's going to be war. For your safety, you have to leave temporarily. Leave everything. Don't take anything with you. And people just locked the door. Some even didn't lock the door. They put the keys on the tree. My grandma tells me this. She locked the door. She hung the key on the mulberry tree, because they're coming back. And there were some people that went back thinking the war is over, but somehow things changed. And when the French had to leave Anatolia, well, at that time was still Anatolia until 1921. In 1921, there was a revolution in Turkey against the Sultan. The revolution was done by young Turks, headed by Kemal Atatürk. And when that happened, Armenians said, no, we're going back. This is too much. And there was animosities back then also. So 1921, many of these orphanages fled. There are a couple of stories that really worth mentioning it. If we go to the next one, okay, that's another. Actually, this is the photo of the rug that was given to Kalust Gulbenkian. We're going to talk about Dorinda. This photo, this girl, okay, it says Dorinda at home in 1918. Her name is, actually full name is Dorinda Bowman. When 1884 to 1886, there were the Adana massacres. She was about 16 years old, and she was a missionary living in Pennsylvania. She was a Mennonite missionary. She had an older sister. She didn't have any brothers. Because she was avid Christian and she went to the church was giving the news about what's happening in Anatolia back then. And some of the missionaries were going there to assist the refugees and the orphans. She was touched by those news. And at the age 16, she said, I want to go. I want to go. They said, no, you're underage. You cannot go during that time at the age 16 to Anatolia. She said, no, I want to go and assist those children. When they forbade her, they said, no, you cannot. You're not going. She said, look, if you're not going to allow me to go with your permission, I'm going to run away. Finally, what they said, okay, her cousin was an older girl. They said, you can go with your cousin. Since she's a missionary, you can go and assist her. So she went to the Adana, and she found one of the most accumulated orphans in the city of Hajin. In the city of Hajin, she gathers all these orphans, and she makes a makeshift orphanage in a grapevine yard. Under the grapevines, she puts clothes and things as a shelter and starts caring for these orphan kids until further help arrives. They rent a building, and under the American flag protection, they start caring for those Armenian orphan kids. In mid-1890s, she wakes up one morning, she opens the door, and she sees we don't know, a little child, I should say a child, because we don't know a male or female, wearing this raggedy dress and sleeping right at the door, shivering from the cold. She immediately takes the child inside. Filthy, so they changed her, they bathed her, they start feeding her. But what catches her eye was the dress that this child was wearing. She takes the dress, she doesn't discard it, she hides it. She washes it, she folds it, and she puts it in a stash in her box. And eventually, in that orphanage also, girls were weaving carpets. So there are only handful of those carpets survived. We did find 2 of them in America. One came from Dallas, Texas. It was inherited from a missionary to his grandson. In 2014, there was this, the orphan rug was all over the news. We're going to come to that story. They read the story. They reached us saying, we have an orphan rug from Hajin that predates 1915. So we got that one, and we have another rug that Dorinda Bowman herself brought it with her along with the dress that she kept. What happened, the Hajin orphanage went on and on until 1915. Come 1915 massacres, she gets a word that the Turkish army was coming over to just burn down everything that stood in their way, including the orphanage, and they were going to kill the kids. So she makes an arrangement. She had very short window, very, very short window. During that time, she also wanted those girls to weave her a rug. While these girls were weaving the rug didn't finish. She said, you have only 1 week to finish this rug, wherever it is. Just put the border on and finish it, because we're leaving. So the girls cut the design unfinished, cut the border design, finished the border, put an end to it. She takes that rug, she takes her notes. She was also like a journalist. She was sending letters to America, giving the news. She takes all her paperwork, all her archives, including the dress and the rug. She puts it on a horse. She travels from Hajin all the way to Smyrna to take a boat and return to America. This is when she returned to America. And the next photo is the dress that we talked about. Now, in 2015, at the Centennial, we did an exhibit of this dress and orphan rugs. And I told the stories and all that. At that time, I wanted to analyze. I also cleaned this dress myself, because it's been sitting in her storage all that time, all these years. For 100 years was sitting in a Mennonite college in her box. And also the rug. So both of them I had to wash, I had to clean, I had to mount it on a loom to display it in right here in Mission Hills, Ararat Eskijian Museum. In fact, if your audience at any time want to visit Ararat Eskijian Museum in Mission Hills, that's the
Right down the street, everybody.
right down the street, 15 minutes from here, you can see this dress. You can see some of the orphan rugs that are housed there at this time. None of them are owned by the museum, by the way. They are lent to the museum from the families. Here is the photo again of the dress, how it is displayed in the museum in a plastic box. So when I examined this, I said, how could this dress be this old, this raggedy, all these patches? I flipped the dress, I'm looking inside, under the patch, there is nothing. No holes, no damage. Then I started studying and noticed that each patch came from a different dress. So I came to the conclusion, just like an archaeologist, I came to a conclusion that this little poor child, in order to feel connected to her family, to her loved ones, she couldn't take anything with her. When they were killed, she took a knife or something, she took a small patch of her loved one's dress and just raggedly just sewed it on her dress so she feels close to them all that time. It's such a touchy story though. Okay? So folks, if you live near or around Los Angeles, look into Ararat Eskijian Museum in Mission Hills. Go visit. Go visit. You see a lot of history, American and Armenian history right there. It's open. Call. They have a website, Ararat Eskijian Museum. Just look into it, do your Google search, and go visit. A lot of history there, a lot of tangible evidences there. That's the story of Dorinda Bowman. By the way, she continued up until 1940s. She went back to Syria. She went back to Lebanon. In Lebanon, those refugee camps have continued until my time, until 50s, 60s. The refugee camps were still there. They were like makeshift homes. And she continued her work there. There were camps. We called Sanjah camp, Tiro camp, Karantina, and there was another one called Charchabuk camp. All these were refugee camps. That's a different story. We'll have another segment on that.
Yeah, that's a whole story.
Very, very interesting. Next one is the rug made by the orphan girls, and it shows how one end the design is broken. If you look at that highlighted corner, you see there is no continuity in the border pattern, where on the top it cuts and just continues. So that's an archival photo. And here is the photo I've taken myself. If you look at the top, you see how the pattern doesn't have. Compare the upper corner with the lower corner, and you can see it, Arnie. You see that? Yeah. This is complete. And this one here is just broken, and the patterns are just broken. This is the Dorinda Bowman rug.
It's beautiful.
Now, who is this? What are we looking at this picture? Uncle Fester.
Yeah, Uncle Fester.
From what series? Do you remember the series? It was a TV series. Uncle Fester from Addams Family. You remember Addams Family series?
It was still during my time. It was the tail end of it. But
yeah. Uncle Fester, everybody knows him as Uncle Fester. Well, lo and behold, Uncle Fester, when he was very young, his real name is, they know him as Uncle Fester, but his name is Jackie Coogan. Jackie Coogan was about 12 years old when the United States was on a campaign to assist the Armenian orphans and Armenian refugees. He was an actor back then. And Charlie Chaplin was also touched by the stories of orphans and the refugees, and Charlie Chaplin did a lot also to assist the Armenians and Greeks, Assyrian refugees. Charlie Chaplin did a movie back then. The movie was called, very famous, The Kid, simply The Kid. And he was influenced, his story was influenced by Armenian orphans, and the movie of The Kid is an orphan kid in the streets, and he rescues him. And the entire movie is like a comedy. But down deep, it's a tragedy, okay? And Uncle Fester, Jackie Coogan, played the little kid in that movie. That's him, you see?
It's beautiful.
Jackie Coogan was actually sponsored by a condensed milk company. There was a milk company back then, Nestle, very famous, coast to coast. Actually, worldwide, Nestle was distributed. And Nestle sponsored him, paid all the expenses for him to go coast to coast and raise funds. Here are some photos of Jackie Coogan sending aid to the Armenian refugees.
Wow.
And the orphans. And it says, food for nearest relief. At that time, there were huge signs, billboards, signs on the trains to assist the Armenians and the refugees. Here is another picture. Look at this. Jackie Coogan doing a campaign to raise funds. That's the train. American Nearest Relief. You see the sign on the train. And people did come forward. Believe it or not, at that time, it was a hard time for the United States also. They just barely came out of First World War. Don't forget, following that, depression came. I mean, people were not that well-to-do. They were hardly making, and they did take the expense of their Sunday meal and put it on the side. And there are so many different stories. Children in the schools, they collected pennies. They sold lemonades. So many different ways of collecting funds to send. And they collected over $110 million. You know what's that today's money? Between 1915 to 1920s, over $110 million. It's like
over $1 billion today.
$1.5 billion maybe. That's not easy for that time. Those were hard days. And the money that went assisted those children and the refugees, did put a smile on children's face. Look at that little girl doing her embroidery and smiling for the camera when they told her they're going to send her picture to America. She was happy to smile and give them that photo. And here is a picture of a shantytown refugee camp in This is in Aleppo, Syria. Uh, as I said, those refugee camps were named after their old cities. Camp Marash, Camp Adana, Camp Urfa, and this was in Camp Urfa. Here's inside the camp house, one of the house, you see so many things. If you look at the upper left side, 4 girls sitting weaving a carpet, a grandma cooking, another grandma caring for the child. In one house, so many things happening at the same time. So under these conditions they were living, and frankly, the entire Middle Eastern Armenian diaspora, we owe it to our grandmothers. Those females, you hardly see any male in those pictures, by the way. Those females were fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters and educators that raised the future generation who we are now. And all that, it wouldn't have happened if those relief funds didn't go. I mean, it went from other organizations. Red Cross was heavily involved in it also. I'm going to tell you one day, maybe we do a separate podcast on International Red Cross was formed because of the atrocities in Ottoman Empire. It's a fascinating story. Again, American missionaries went all the way to Switzerland to be able to form an international Red Cross. So legally, they were able to assist the refugees. That's another podcast.
Definitely.
So here's some photos of those refugee camps and how those refugees lived. Again, you hardly see any young man, male man, in those photos. If we keep flipping, again, you see women caring for children in the makeshift cradles. While caring for children, they're doing embroideries. Why they were doing those embroideries? Because they were there, besides the relief they were getting, they wanted to send back something. They wanted to
show their appreciation.
Show their appreciation. Also, they were selling those. And Nearest Relief was getting so many of those rugs, embroideries. They started opening stores in New York, in Philadelphia, and they were selling those, sending the money right back to them to continue the chain. Here's a look at this beautiful girl over a loom weaving a cloth. Well, there are certain embroidery types that regular cloth doesn't work. It has to be certain density in weave, and they knew how. And that's how they should have weaved in certain density. So when they do the embroidery, all those squares, when they do that basket weave, those squares are visible. Later, when they do needlepoint, those are made in China, already made prints, and they do. But the older ones are totally different. I happen to have few pieces that I brought with me. I want to show you. Again, it was very difficult for me to find, but let me show you.
Let's see.
If we go forward, you see something like this. Let's continue with the orphanage, the refugee camps. Children learning, getting educated, while their mothers, grandmothers are doing embroideries. And as I said, they were their teachers, they were their guardians, everything. These two women, they were master embroiderers. In those refugee camps, those two women opened the school for embroidery. And they started teaching the young kids how to do embroidery. And here she is with young girls teaching them how to do embroidery. There were special houses for handicaps because they needed assisted living. So handicaps had their own place when neighbor women would take turns to go cook for them or assist them. And even those handicapped women doing the embroideries. This lady was a famous embroiderer. Her name, after her name, she had certain techniques. Certain embroidery techniques were named after her. She was called the Golden Hands. Here is a sample of the embroidery in these images. You see what those women did. Here's another one. Now this one, the lower one, is similar to this one, Arnie. Now if you look closely, this cloth, look how beautiful it is. Now if you just look at the cloth, you see how coarse, there is a certain density. This is linen, hand-woven linen. Even the linen itself, the thread, is not machine spun, it's hand-spun linen thread, and then woven just like that girl on the loom. The way we can tell it's a hand-spun linen, you see inconsistency in the thickness of each thread, and then the embroidery done over it. This is like a needle point, we call it cross stitch, and in the back, somewhere, right there, what does it say?
Near
East Industries. This camp was in Athens, Greece.
Wow.
See that?
Beautiful.
The next one I want to show you, they also did utilitarian pieces. Orphan boys, they weren't idle. They also did work. They did mechanical work, they did machinery, they also did carpentry. In carpentry, they used to make those handbag handles. See this engraved handle? And they would send it to the girls' orphanage, and the girls will do the body, the bag, the same way, cross a stitch, and then attach it, sew it to the wood. When the boys did the handle, they poke holes from where the lining and the bag would be sewn. It even had a little purse for the change attached to it.
They thought of everything.
They thought of everything. And here again, what does it say, the tag?
Nearest Industries, Athens, Greece.
Athens, Greece. These two are from the Athens part. Then from Syria and Lebanon, we have these. They also did crochet. Believe it or not, this was a hat to wear for women when they go to church, like semi-veil. Yeah, pretty cute. They did table ornaments. This is tedious work. They take a cloth, they start pulling the thread out, they leave certain threads, and then they wrap around those threads to create these patterns.
Wow.
tedious work. Again,
Indeed, baby.
the same technique they use for an entire cloth to do a border. And look at this corner. This is just by pulling the thread, the negative part, they work to create this. This is like a handkerchief or a tablecloth. So these are pieces that tell us the stories.
Definitely. How did you manage to get your hands on such valuable?
You know, my name is pretty well known when it comes to Armenian hand-woven textiles, any textile. I get calls from all over. I've purchased some pieces from Israel. I've purchased from Europe, many, from all over the United States, from Canada. There are collectors that know. There are also what they call pickers. In America, you've seen those movies. Pickers go from state to state to collect things, and most of them know. And I just tell them, shoot a picture, whatever you can see from the entire rug, and then flip one corner, do a close-up photo, put a tape measure or put a quarter, a coin there, so I can tell how the density of the weave, so I know what it is. And I tell them, you can pay up to this amount, and I can give you your cut, whatever it is. That's how I have probably over 300 rugs, and probably about 120 different textiles, embroideries, dresses, vests, anything that's hand-woven, let's say. And again, here is the Anteb orphanage. This belongs to my first boss in Chicago, which his family, his Iberian family now are very, very big in Rockies. They've been in the business for 4 generations, and this belongs in their collection, Iberian Rug Company in Basalt and Aspen, in those areas. This belongs to them. Again, the Agin rug with the. Are we going back?
Yes.
Or we're going forward? Oh, we went back somehow. Dorinda, okay. Let's go forward. We've seen all these. Jackie Coogan. Okay, this is where we were, right?
Yeah.
Jackie Coogan. Yeah, Jackie Coogan was a hero for Armenians. And he was a nice man. He was a nice man. All his life, actually. He was a very humble man. Bless his heart. Bless his soul. Jackie Coogan again. Jackie Coogan. The train. The girl. Oh, how did this...
He went real back. Maybe, there we go.
Oh. Okay, okay, we were here maybe. Yeah, showing this. Yeah, some of those embroideries, the nearest relief, were doing advertisement and showing the pictures of those embroideries. And the girls that doing the embroideries. I was telling you about the school. After the school, some people started thinking of this because the demand was high. Why not open workshops? So they would hire those girls to go to those workshops, to like a factory, handmade embroideries, and from that factory they would spread the entire world until everything became made in China. Some of the clips, how did the orphan children escaped Turkey to come to Syria, to Iraq, to Lebanon. This is a picture. By the way, All these photos are open, accessible, and Nearest Relief has a website. You can access, you can go and learn more about the story. I'm just giving you headlines. This is a long story. That girl who's doing we did this. Oh, I was telling about the store that opened in Philadelphia, in New York. Here is a picture of the Nearest Industries, sponsored and supervised by Nearest Relief. Flambeau Shop, this is the store in New York City. What happened to the next photos? I don't know. Where were we? Here? Oh, no, before that, we have to, let's see, we were here, right?
Right there.
There, the store. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about this family, this wonderful man and his family. The man on the left, his name is Jacob Kunstler. Jacob Kunstler was a Swiss missionary who dedicated his life to go to Turkey to assist the Armenian orphans. He was a medic. And to make the long story short, he was directing the orphanage in Urfa. And when 1915 massacres approached, he made a call from all orphanages to send all their kids to Urfa. And from Urfa, he walked the kids through the desert to Syria, saving them. And then from Syria to Lebanon, to Ghazir orphanage, which we're going to be talking about. By the way, in Urfa, he also had a little workshop for girls to weave carpets, and he hired a master weaver. His name was Hovsep. His last name, that's my mind. Anyway, an Armenian man was supervising how to weave sizes and all that, supervising the workshop for the girls to produce rugs. So when all the orphans, even from Hajin, they went to Urfa, and from Urfa to Syria to Lebanon, in the city called Ghazir, he opened an orphanage. And there were few in Lebanon. There was one in Antura, one in Ghazir, one in Jibail. The one in Jibail was called Bird's Nest. Each orphanage has its own fascinating story. But what I want to talk about is the Jibail, the Ghazir orphanage, was the story of Ghazir orphanage rugs starts when Papa Kunstler asked for funds to build looms, because those girls that came, they were already master weavers. They knew how to weave carpets. They wanted to weave and start gaining their own money instead of relying on, opening their hands. Also, it served for those girls when they learn a trade. So after the age 16, they were not allowed to stay. They were supposed to get married or go out and start their own life. So he made sure they learn a trade so they can earn a living with their dignity. He was a saint. To me, this man was a saint. Jacob Kunstler gets $450 as a startup. He buys wood. He builds looms, like 4 to 6 looms for the girls to start weaving. So they start weaving rugs. They sell the rugs. They build more looms. They sell the rugs. Portion of it, they managed the funds, they managed the income, and the rugs were also sold by Nearest Relief. Here is the first image of the workshop that you see in Ghazir Orphanage, where the girls, some of them are weaving, some of them are putting the finishing touches, the one on the floor. And eventually, it turned into almost like a factory. So they were producing more and more. Here's a picture of the factory. And the man in the background is Hofsep, their supervisor. Sometimes there was no room and they would put the looms outside in the summertime. They weave it outdoors. A close-up of the girl weaving, looking at the draft to follow the design to weave the rug. Again, another girl in weaving. And the rugs being washed and baled and sent to United States. And this is a copy. And in here, in the United States, they were presented and people were fascinated by them and they were buying. Some rugs were so large, they had to hang it from the roof to get a picture of it. And those girls, after a while, they decided all this good that came from America, they want to weave a carpet to donate it to the American people. As I was mentioning, they wove a rug, a beautiful, beautiful rug that has a central medallion with an 8-pointed star, similar to this one, but much more fancier, much more elaborate, with two pendants, one on the top, one on the lower part. And in 1925, right on Christmas Day, December 25, they brought it with 3 orphan girls, donated to President Calvin Coolidge, expressing their gratitude. And here are some of the pictures of those large rugs, but there was nothing as big as the one that they sent to President Calvin Coolidge. Oh, this photo is out of place where boys and girls, the girls are weaving carpets and the boys are doing carpentry and other trade work. When the girls became at the age 16, the Nearest Relief would give them a certificate of accomplishment and certificate that they are master weavers. With that certificate, when they go out, they would find a job because it's like a diploma. It's a certificate. This is a sample of the certificate given to Victoria Chajian from Nearest Relief. Okay. This photo is a miniature, a little sister of the orphan rug that was given to President Calvin Coolidge. A little later, when I show you the picture of the president's rug, you see that the upper and the lower pendants next to the medallions is the same as the medallion on this rug. Papa Kunstler had a daughter. Her young daughter was 4 years old. When the girls were weaving President Calvin Coolidge's rug, while they were weaving the rug, they were babysitting the little girl. And the little girl is sitting next to them and playing with the yarn and mimicking the girls weaving the rug, so forth, so on. When the rug was finished and sent to America, the little girl was looking for this rug. She said, "Where is my rug?" She thought that was her rug. "Where is my rug?" And she started crying. Her rug is no longer there. So those girls said, "Look, we're gonna do a rug for you only, and you're gonna keep it all your life. What color would you like? She said blue. Okay, they decided, and they wore a rug with the little girl sitting next to them, and she kept that rug all her life. Eventually, she moved to United States. She got married. She had 3 daughters. She lived in La Jolla. While we were writing, the media is overwhelmed with the orphan rug in White House. They read, and the word goes, and they say, we have one too. The word came out. We saw the picture of the rug. At that time, still, Maggie Goshen, the director of Hratch Kozibeyokian Museum, gets the news, and she just drives there to her home. She takes pictures of the rug in her home. She's texted to me. She said, Hratch, this is the rug. What do you think? Is it orphan rug? I said, grab it. It's the mini-me of President Calvin Coolidge's rug. And later we learned who she is, and the story completed there. So that rug never left that little girl. She was 96 years old. We promised to her daughters, to her also, that the story of her family, her father, and what they've done should not be kept, should be open to public, should be displayed. People should know about their family. So finally, first time in her life, she let that rug to go at the age 96. The rug came first to me. It was never washed, but it wasn't filthy. So I cared for it. I washed it. I did the proper repairs. In this photo, you see this is at my place. And then built that loom in the previous photo, and it was hung. You see, one corner is flipped, the lower right corner. Yes. Again, that's where the same tag is. This one is right there, only dedicated to the little girl. So when we had all these rugs, the daughters also ended up, each daughter ended up with one rug, her daughter. In other words, the grandpa, Jacob Kunstler, donated one rug for each of her granddaughters. So each one had one of these. Not the same design, each one a different design, and they all are right now at the museum. Okay, here is the picture. The rug before came to Washington, to White House, to be presented to Calvin Coolidge. The girls hung it from the Jibeil Ghazir orphanage roof and took a picture of it. And you see, the middle is the same as this one, the 8-pointed star that represents the sunburst or the sunshine, which is a sign of hope, a symbol of life, hope. We say we see the light end of the tunnel, light, hope, all the good things. That's the symbol. Again, from a different angle, the same rug, Calvin Coolidge's rug. And the lower, you see I'm enlarging, the lower pendant became the central pattern of Kunstler's rug. Here is when the president received the rug, and he said, this beautiful rug woven by the Armenian children in the Ghazir orphanage in the Lebanon, in Lebanon's plural, has been received. this, their expression of gratitude for what we have been able to do in this country for their aid, is accepted by me as a token of their goodwill to the people of the United States. This rug, as you see, the close-up photo of the back tag,
Golden rule.
the golden rule. Golden rule people should never ever forget. The time, I don't want to sound like a preacher, but really, the time this golden rule is forgotten and not practiced, that's the downfall of humanity, Arnie.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I think
So-
we should revive it. I think it
Yeah.
should be
Yeah,
a new, not a new ritual. It should be revived ritual that we all begin to practice
exactly.
as Armenians, as Americans, and everybody else around the world. What's happening in Israel, Palestine.
We're
It's,
living difficult times.
It's almost similar times, but the people,
Exactly.
in a way, have changed.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to say people are more heartless or less active, but seems like back then, everybody got involved. Everybody donated a little, did a little, as much as they could. And they were more selfless, maybe? I don't know. I'm sure everybody was facing difficulties back then because of the Great Depression coming. They had the flu, the Spanish flu. So America,
1918, the Spanish flu. They went through the same thing.
yeah,
what
we went through
during
COVID. They went through
COVID.
Spanish flu.
You know, I have archival photos from 1918 Spanish flu. People were wearing masks. The same thing. People were being ticketed if they were not wearing masks.
So it's nothing new. It's history
nothing
repeating
new.
itself.
Exactly. It's repeating itself in a spiral way. You know, not cyclic, spiral. Different time, but the same energy. But really, Arnie, at that time, neighborhoods were warmer. There was this community life. People, neighbor to neighbor, cared. It's really unfortunate when you don't know who lives next door to you. When you look at your neighbor in a suspicious way. When I was growing up, if I did something wrong, I was a mischievous kid. I was a rascal. I always ran into trouble.
Trouble found you.
And neighbors took upon themselves to discipline me. And it was fine with my parents. I would have get spanked from anybody in the neighborhood. And it was fine.
I myself too. I
Can
had,
you approach a kid now? Never mind. Going back. Again, there was a major presentation of the rug, and people, the key people were there when they accepted it. As a matter of fact, it's not recorded, but legend says that those three girls, they also brought with them embroidered handkerchief for the first lady back then. There's another story that ties why one of the main reasons President Coolidge was so had a soft heart for orphan boys, little kids, because he had a boy who passed away at the age 16, got poisoned by a rusted nail that went in his foot. At that time, there was no penicillin, there was no
antibiotics,
tetanus, no
tetanus.
antibiotics. He lost his only child. By the way, the same thing happened to Papa Kunstler. They orphans called him Papa Kunstler. Jacob Kunstler, the director, he was an amputee. While running after a child, he falls down on a rusted nail, goes in his arm, he gets infected really bad, they amputate him. So the rest of his life was only one hand. And he continued. So, in 2010, One of our members, when I say our members, I want to mention the Armenian Rugs Society, which was founded in 1980. Their mission was to collect, to preserve, and to make known the Armenian rugs, as you know, because during communism era there was nothing protecting the identity of Armenian rugs. So Armenian Rugs Society did that work. They collected rugs. They were Armenian rug collectors, scholars. Did publications. Our first publication book is called King's Merchants and Weavers of Armenian Rugs, 1984 publication. We did a coast-to-coast exhibit of all inscribed rugs. The publication was called Inscribed Rugs of Armenia. All those rugs that had inscriptions on them were dedicatory carpets. So we did an exhibit and publications. One of the members was Dr. Deranian. He was a dentist, lived in Boston. Dr. Deranian mother had a very close friend who was an orphan girl from Ghazir, who knew about the rug that was donated to President Calvin Coolidge. Until then, when President Calvin Coolidge left the office, he took the rug to his house. He used it in his house also. And when he passed away, his son didn't want to keep it. His son said, this rug doesn't belong to our family. It didn't come to us. It came to American people. It belongs to the White House. So his son sends it back to White House. The White House puts it in the storage. And ever since, that rug stayed there. When 1915, centennial of Armenian genocide was approaching, we said, let's try to get that rug out for exhibit. During that time, there is a filmmaker called Bared Maronian who has produced a documentary movie called Orphans of the Genocide. In that movie, he did interview Dr. Deranian. Dr. Deranian talks about this rug, but there's no photo of the rug. He has a photo of the rug, but we couldn't reach. We didn't have anything. So the filmmaker goes to Armenia to show the movies, and he is doing an exhibit of these archival photos of the rug, President Coolidge, Ghazir orphan girls. One of our members at that time, the vice president of Armenian Rug Society, has a hotel in Armenia. And he was also present. While he was present, the American ambassador to Armenia was invited also to the exhibit. First time he learns about this rug in Armenia, in these photos, and talking to our vice president, who was a restaurateur in San Francisco, Levon Derbedrosyan. Levon says, it's too bad it's in the basement, in the storage, and the centennial is coming. We would like to expose it and display it. I said, let me see what can I do. So we start a three-way communication, a triangle between the ambassador in Armenia, the White House, and me here, us. Back and forth. To make the long story short, the White House agrees to let it out for 24 hours. But they say there are so many liabilities. We need to get an insurance. You have to hire security guards only for 24 hours for one-day exhibit. But we have to choose the venue and you have to pay. Back and forth, Smithsonian agrees. It was going to cost the Armenian Rug Society $45,000. They gave us the bill. We said, you got it, we'll bring it, we'll do it. Let's do it for one day. At least we can, call the press and let it be public. We can, we can remind the American people that we're still grateful what they did. And here is the symbol of our gratitude for what America did to us, to the Armenians. Back and forth again, came another letter rejected. 24 hours is too risky. We can only allow it for 8 hours. And only by a certain people to be shown, no more than this and the list we have to choose. We thought that they were pulling a bluff or giving us something that we reject. We say no. We said, okay. They said, well, it's going to cost the same thing. We said, okay. They come back after 2 days. They said, sorry, we cannot do it. The story leaks to Washington Post. I get a call from Washington Post. Say, we heard such a thing is happening. What's the story? So, well, this is what happened. Exactly this is what happened. They dig left and right, left and right. We don't have any evidence, but the word comes out that maybe there was a pressure from Turkey, because displaying that rug that tells the story of Armenian genocide, at the time, United States didn't officially acknowledge it. But however, there was acknowledgement before. That's a different story. Washington Post runs a huge article on it. TVs get hold of it. TVs copy it. Now, the rejection, which is a negative thing to us, turned into positive. Over 300 worldwide newspapers, BBC, I'm getting calls, interviews. What's happening? By rejecting, and that story itself of rejection and trying to hide it did more publicity to the piece, to the cause, than if they let it us for one day. It was going to be limited. So you just Google orphan rug now, you see the publications from worldwide. Finally, to make the long story short, there were a lot of representatives involved in it. I talked to Adam Schiff, I talked to our local representatives, and they said, we're going to go on this. There were 31 representatives. They wrote a letter to President Obama.
Yes.
Where is that? I cannot.
The other way.
Huh?
It should be.
Please. Here's the letter. Here's a copy of the letter written by 31 representatives, signed by 31 representatives, sent to President, and cost us zero, nothing, to display it in the visitors center of the White House for 1 week. So I was invited by the congressional team in the press conference, in the press club. In that photo, I was giving the story of the orphan rug, and I was repeating the gratitude, and I told the Congress and the American people, I'm simply echoing the voice of those who are silent now. And I gave a tiny speech and the story of it. And that's the letter. And those are the signatures that you see, all the 31 representatives. And here's the rug displayed in the visitor center of the White House. And that's the tag behind it right there. And again, as I said, this rug also represents the golden rule. Girls, that's another photo with Adam Schiff and his assistant. Here is the golden rule. The girls, orphan girls, by the way, this photo is from way east. At that time, there was a town called Alexandropol in Armenia. Today is Gyumri. The Armenian name of it is Gyumri. The town of Gyumri had the nickname of town of orphans. There was a barrack, a military barrack. The entire barrack was orphanage. Thousands of girls and boys lived there. And often they came together to send a message to American people. They formed these, and letters, it says Golden Rule. And here they also thanking the American people. America, we thank you. In the background, you see the barrack. And that's the orphanage in today's Gyumri. And believe it or not, many people today's Gyumri are descendants of those orphans. Okay, that's the wrong one of my clients. So with this, I really want to end it for today's podcast, Arnie. I hope I didn't talk too much. Sometimes I get carried away.
No, I definitely think this was more of an educational history of Armenia, America, rug history, weavers, orphanages, and I think what's so realistic is we're facing similar tragedies today.
These things always happen. You know, in many of the symbolism in Armenian rugs, they put evil and good next to each other, negative and positive together. And then there is one symbol, it's amazing. It says, life is the well-balanced unity of the negative and the positive. In everybody there is negativity and there's a positivity. In 4 elements that life consists of, earth, wind, water, fire, right? Each element has its negative and positive side. And if we are in our intellect, if we can have both in a harmonious way, that's where life begins. That's where life is. And I reiterate you, I second you. And again, as you always say these positive things to your audience and the things you do to your community, Arnie,
I do what I can. I think my grandfather, I was raised by my grandfather, and my mentors, and I think they lived by the golden rule. Yeah. Then they used to say, eat your breakfast, share your lunch, and give your dinner away. It had a similar approach. And I think you reach a certain point in life, whether it's success, financially, family, or just career-wise, and the only thing that's left is giving back. And the stories, like you say, the memories you leave behind, the legacy you leave behind. And many people have made money their religion, have made success their status, their symbol, their existence, and they've lost touch with humanity. They've lost touch with history. And unfortunately, the stories we don't hear today, today we have internet, Facebook, Instagram, and we see a lot of things happening in war zones. They didn't have those privileges back then. Yeah. But the true stories have not yet been told. Yeah. And I think it's going to be years, 10, 20, 50, maybe even 100 years, where somebody somewhere says, wait, there was this orphan, there was this individual, and this is how it played out.
Yeah.
And I think we shouldn't forget history, for history does repeat itself. And your wealth of knowledge is a blessing to both the Armenian community, the American community, the Los Angeles community here in California. I think the knowledge you've carried and the knowledge you've gained along the way is being passed on.
Yes.
And it's an honor to have you to be able to display that. And definitely you'll be invited back, and we can have series of Armenian rugs.
There are many stories like this, untold stories that are really fascinating, and it's good for us to learn because, you know, history is the tool for humanity to advance. For example, in Armenian carpet patterns, I have rugs from several generations, from one generation to another. The same pattern, copied, but added on another more fancier, more sophisticated. And you see that elevation in every generation. It's the same thing for civilizations. We couldn't have been here if we haven't learned from the previous ones. Every technology around us, everything that puts us where we are right now, those are the building blocks of our ancestors. That's how society advances, becomes into perfection, evolution, right? So if we don't learn from the previous ones, we cannot advance. It comes in everything. That's another golden rule.
Well, I mean, to wrap it up, I want to encourage our audience to definitely live by the golden rule.
Yeah.
On Sundays, eat a little less, pass on your savings or the money you would gather to an orphanage, someone less fortunate, whether it be your homeless you see down the street, whether it's Palestine, Israel, war, Artsakh refugees. And another thing, actually, I want to do, and I want to share with the audience in Armenia and everywhere else, because we do have 120,000 Artsakh Armenians that are now misplaced from our ancestral lands. And if any of them have carried on their rugs, their family rugs that they've carried on, I think I'm willing to, I don't want to say buy it from them because it would not sound right in a sense. I will fund them so we can save that rug. And I will have Hratch be in charge of it, of caring for it. And, I want to say validating it and maybe verifying it, because you are the wizard of rugs. And we can definitely, in order to preserve our history and our culture, because
I don't want to cut you off, but during the 2020 war, Shushi, the city of Shushi, when Armenians lost that, there was a factory that were producing Armenian rugs. All the workers left. Everything left like that. And over 225 workers left jobless. They had souvenir rugs, small ones, like 2x2. And I get a call from the director of the factory. Says, Hratch, I haven't paid my workers for 3 months. I don't know what to do. I said, one of our motorcycle brothers was there already, and we were already assisting. I was auctioning my rugs, the doubles that I have, that I could get a part with. I was auctioning and sending the money, auctioning online, sending the money. I called, I said, what kind of figure can help you? He said, I'm not going to give the number. He said, if I have so much now that could last me for the next month. I said, you got it. Somebody with this name is going to come and give you the funds. I placed a call. Within 6 hours, the fund was in his house. Then he said, look, I'm not going to be able to pay. But I said, nobody's asking back. Just pay and get things done. He said, look, I have a stack of rugs that are souvenirs, 2x2. I cannot do anything with it. I said, okay, how much are you selling them? Says, about $100 each or so. I said, how many you have? He said, about 60 of them. I said, okay, count them sold. When my brother comes, he's going to take them. He got them all. He paid for them. When he returned, he brought them with him. I started selling those and sending the funds back to them again. You know, it became a habit. After 3 years, when the rest of Artsakh we lost, the same thing happened. The first assistance that those refugees were getting was a border town called Goris. One day I'll talk about Goris. That's another thing. So 2 of our motorcycle brigade brothers went to Goris, and they are building 2 homes now for families, 2 houses for families that are orphan boys, orphan children, single mothers. Anyway, that's another topic.
Yeah, and maybe if we can find some of those weavers, the master weavers, we can rebuild a rug factory.
I'll do a podcast with you. We sit down, we'll do a program if you are up to it.
100%.
There's always something happening, and I'm here to partner with you with that project anytime.
Definitely. Beautiful. I think we're going to do that. We're going to have a follow-up podcast about building our next factory, production place to invite the Artsakh refugees that had to forced to leave. And we could begin, manufacturing or producing Armenian rugs. And this is part of our history. Armenian rugs is part of our history. It tells our story. And individuals like the rug wizard, Mr. Hratch, who is a wealth of knowledge. And our platform is his platform. And we welcome you back. You're welcome to use our platform.
Thank you.
And,
I appreciate it.
Definitely share your knowledge, because I think the audience deserves to know.
And I wish you much success, Ernie. Really, with all honesty, having a studio like this in our community, and you have your doors open for the community to use it, it's much appreciated.
Beautiful.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you.
And
Thank you for coming
We're
here.
going to repeat this.
Definitely.
And now you know the rest of the story.
To be continued.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Stay blessed.
Good
And
night.
the golden rule.
Yes, stay with the golden rule. Absolutely.